Welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight. I'm Lesley Kaplan, bringing you inspiring individuals making a difference in Israel every single week. Today, our special guest in Spotlight is Moishe Sandler, who is an accomplished entrepreneur and philanthropist, originally from Mexico. He and his family made Aliyah just 4 months ago. I happen to know them personally, and throughout his career, Moishe has dedicated himself to creating business opportunities and also advancing numerous philanthropic initiatives worldwide. He sat on many boards in Israel and worldwide, including being president of Hadassah International in Jerusalem. On the entrepreneur side, Moishe ran a business for 41 years where he transformed a single furniture location store into 26 locations. Then he changed his route after facing numerous health challenges. Moishe went on a journey into wellness and into health and became a trained and certified functional medicine health coach, which he now applies to his lives as well as to his clients. So sit back and enjoy hearing Moishe's story from Mexico to Israel. Moishe, welcome to the Monday Motivation Spotlight podcast. I'm so excited to have you as my guest here today. I also feel privileged that you happen to be a neighbor of mine and a new friend. You're one of Israel's newest Olim. You've been in Israel only for 4 months, so welcome, Baruch haba, as they say. And I'm delighted that we've already connected. I've met your delightful wife. And the moment I met you, once I got to know you, I said, Moishe, you need to be a guest on my podcast. So here we are. Welcome.
Thank you, Lesley. It's always an honor. And I think very highly of you and your program. So we hope we can share some good information that we can both take home value.
Amazing. So as I mentioned earlier, Moishe and his family made Aliyah 4 months ago from Mexico. So tell us a little bit about, seeing most of your life has been in Mexico and you did spend some time in the US as well. Tell us a bit about growing up as a Jew out of Israel. Did you have a good Jewish identity? Were you aware of everything? I'm talking about in your younger years. And then we'll move towards and forward as Moishe as an adult and all the amazing stuff that you've been involved in.
Thank you. First of all, growing in a Mexican Jewish community, it's an incredible experience. Number one, probably Mexico has some of the strongest Jewish communities around the world. We call it the Jewish bubble because we live within the bubble. We are very well protected. I was born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, which had a very small community, but we all lived in the same neighborhood. What does it mean? It translates into if you were driving and somebody will see me walking by myself, they'll pick me up and take me home. Or if my parents needed to go away, any of our neighbors will take care of us without having any really issues about leaving us alone and surrounded by people who will take care of us, look after us, will drive us to school, to our different classes, etc. I was very lucky that my father was the president of the Jewish school, of the patronate or the parents association. And he decided when I was in second class that instead of teaching us Yiddish, they will teach us Hebrew. So he brought a family from Israel, and within 3 or 4 years, we were already fluent in Hebrew. And when you learn a language at a very early age, that makes it a lot easier. And that installed in us a very strong Zionist idea in our minds. Now, my dream was always to get to know, and when I finished high school, about to finish high school, my father and my mom decided to take their 4 children to Israel. And we spent 2 beautiful weeks here just getting to know. What I didn't know, that the purpose of that trip was to know our family who had just left Lithuania thanks to my father and his brother's efforts. They were able in 1972 to take all of our family out of Lithuania. And it was just an incredible reunion. And I was a translator because my parents didn't speak Hebrew, but they spoke very good Yiddish, and saw the family in Lithuania. And it was just one emotional event that kindled our idea. For those who've been here in 1972, Israel was a very different country. There was very little of all the buildings we see today, but there was a lot of life on the street, and there was a lot of happiness. We could get on the beach and just start dancing.
You can still do that, seeing you also live close to the beach. So do you go dance on the beach right now, or that was in 1972?
Absolutely, we can still do that. And the most important thing is that started a tradition in my family to keep coming to Israel as frequent as we could. When I actually finished high school a few years later, again, we came to celebrate that I was finishing high school, and then I was 16, 17 probably. And I remember starting going to the bars and meeting young people here in Israel before they went to the army. And 2 or 3 years later, I would see them after they finished the army, and they were completely different and mature adults, which we were not. And that inspired me to become a much better person. And how could I be part of that nation?
Wow, incredible. So you're saying from a young age, you were already a Zionist, your family was Zionists, and your dream, which became a goal, and your vision was to make Aliyah.
No, I would lie if I said so. My Aliyah feeling started in 1993. That was the first Mitzvah Chaim, the first March of the Living, that was organized by the Keren HaYesod. And my parents couldn't agree to go for some reason. And the president of Keren HaYesod in Mexico said, Moshe, why don't you go instead of your parents? So Becky, my wife, and I joined the group. At the last minute, my parents were able to join the group too. And it was just an incredible Havaya because it was the 45th anniversary of the independence of Israel. But at the same time, it was 50 years from the uprising of the Warsaw Ghetto. Itzhak Rabin was there. Dudu Fisher was a Hassan. You had 45,000 people at the Warsaw Plaza
Incredible.
celebrating the uprising. And together with that, we were, I'm not going to say it was great, but it was a very deep experience to go with survivors of the different camps, of different Mahanot, Auschwitz, Birkenau, Treblinka, Majdanek, and to go with them and share with them the experience. And I was 20, 30 meters away from Itzhak Rabin's Zechrono Levacha. It was a complete, incredible experience to be able to be there where they wanted to destroy us, and now we were celebrating in Warsaw and in all the different camps our existence. And I
Right.
remember we flew in,
An experience that most people have not had. Yes, they may have visited on their own. To be part of this group with the strength of the group and Jewish identity, I can just imagine the impact that it made on you.
and in Treblinka, we were the Reichman family from Uruguay, who we didn't know at the time, but then I learned through the Bitachon people who were with us in the group. We had extensive Bitachon in our group, more than the other groups, and I was wondering why is it? He was witness. Actually, he was the only surviving witness of the butcher of Treblinka, whose the dean was when it was right after the March. So we were here in March, April, and then in May, he stayed in Israel to be a witness and part of the jury of that trial. That was just amazing. And I remember landing in Israel at 1 o'clock in the morning at a charter from Warsaw, going to the Kotel with all the group and dancing and singing and celebrating because we were depressed after 10 days in Warsaw. We were depressed. And that when this seed came into my heart that this was a place for me to live.
Okay, so between then and 4 months ago, so you visited Israel on numerous occasions. Let's talk about what happened in that gap in all those years, because Moshe, you're also a businessman, you're a leader, you're a visionary, you've been involved in and on many boards, involved in many nonprofits. So your life was really built around being in Mexico. So I guess Aliyah at that particular stage was not on the cards. That obviously came late. So fill us in within the 20 minutes or 30 minutes that we have to talk about your life in Mexico then as an adult, and then we'll lead on to what eventually brought you back to Israel. Share with us, you were a businessman, you are a businessman still, you ran a chain of furniture stores and were in business for 41 years. I think you
Yes.
said it started off as one store, which led to a chain of 26. So share with us the gaps, the years in between.
I was raising well, actually, my wife, Becky, was raising a family. And in those years, and probably today, I would have been doing the same. I would leave my home at 8 o'clock. We'll come back every day at the time the children will come back from school to have lunch with them. And they immediately go back to the store until 8:30, 9 o'clock. Initially, when you start growing professionally and they notice you, they start inviting you to different boards, whether it's a bank. I was on the board of several banks in Mexico. And then they invited me to be part of the board of my university. And that started a career for me as a board member. But the most important is I sat in my university board, and within a year or two, I was invited to join they were building a new medical school, and they wanted me to be part of that board. Why? Don't ask me. They just asked me to sit in that board instead of being on the university level. And it happened to be that two of the doctors who were there were friends of mine that during our youth, I convinced them to come and do their specialty in Hadassah. And then that created a run for many years up until now that Mexican doctors, and I'm talking non-Jewish doctors, come to Hadassah to get their specialty. That by itself allowed me to create several connections between Hadassah Hospital and the Mexican University. Fast forward, the Mexican University Board invited me to join an organization called the Young Presidents Organization, which is a YPO. It's a very under the radar university, but meets probably the most important CEOs around the world. And they become members. And that promoted me into different positions. I started being a chapter chair for the local chapter. Then I became the Mexico chair and then Latin American chair. And until I became the finance chair for the whole organization. But that allowed me to be part of the founding of the Tel Aviv chapter. And most important, one of the programs that we did for that was a special education program with Harvard University. During that program, I met the president of Hadassah, Nancy Falchuk, and she invited me to be part of the board of Hadassah. So I did my 3-year stint as board of Hadassah, left as I was supposed to leave, and then the Madoff scheme came up, and Nancy calls me up on the phone and said, Moshe, can you look at what's happening and help us? And within months, I was back in the board. We tried to institutionalize, and I was privileged to be named the first president, non-female, of Hadassah International. And I served.
Incredible, and such a fabulous organization, something that I'm sure you were very proud to be part of, and you still have a lot of connections to them. And it was their honor to also have you on the board.
Yes, yes. And just knowing the philosophy and meeting, on one hand, you have this, what is called the Ladies of Hadassah, of the HWZOA, of Hadassah Women's Zionist Organization. They're volunteers, but they give their lives for Hadassah. They work like nobody. I've never seen anybody work so hard as they do as volunteers. And being with them and learning from them and being able to be part of their mission, it was just an incredible opportunity to participate and to help, and at the same time to learn that especially medical hospitals in Israel do not operate only for the Jewish people. They save lives. I was in many situations, like in a pigua, where they were treating the terrorists next to the people who were hurt by the pigua. Or I remember once I was in Tel Aviv, I went past one of the explosion of a bus, and when I got to Hadassah, I was at the children's intensive care unit, and they were treating the cancer kids, and there was a family from Palestinians. And when they saw the bombing, they started cheering up in the ICU. And I was next to them, and the doctors, the nurses, all the caregivers, nobody reacted negatively to that family. And that taught me one of the most important lessons in my life, that you don't judge people for the race. And we're here to make a better world and to give help to those who need it.
Well, that takes so much strength and holding back to actually not say anything. And it's being professional that you continue, you're there to treat the patients and not to differentiate. That could not have been easy for many of the staff members.
No, but I opened my eyes. That opened my eyes and gave me a different perspective. So when we had to refresh Har HaTzofim, the hospital in Har HaTzofim, Hadassah Har HaTzofim, we created an area that was beautiful and welcome for those Muslim people who were, whether they were Israelis or not Israeli, but we were able to help them and to have their own accommodations as they will be treated in the best hospital in the world.
Wow, that's incredible. You've been involved, as you said, on numerous boards. You're involved in nonprofit now as well on different boards. Do you want to share with us a little bit, moving from Hadassah, in terms of the other areas that you've been involved in nonprofit? And then afterwards, I want to take our viewers on a journey about your health scare and also the health and the amazing stuff that you're doing in your life now from a health point of view.
Okay. I don't believe that working for the sake of work. Yes, we need to feed our families, we need to give education to our children, and that was the main goal. And probably that delayed my opportunity to do Aliyah. But I had a son who did Aliyah, and he lived here for almost 10 years. And that forced me to accept the position of president of Hadassah so I could come every 2 or 3 months to visit him and his children. And it was an incredible experience living as a resident in Jerusalem and not as a tourist, not in a hotel, but in one of the Haredi, and I apologize, I don't like labels, but in a Haredi community, which had one of the best experiences, the way people treated me there. And one thing suddenly takes you into another. When I learned and I worked in all these nonprofit organizations, I said, what can I do for my community? And I went back, I resigned to all these major organizations, and I went back to become the president of a small Jewish community in Mexico. We were 100 families. But I wanted to bring them the experiences and the emotions that I have had in these very large organizations. I decided that for some reason, Akadosh Baruch Hu gave me the opportunity to be part of worldwide organizations where I sat across the table with Nelson Mandela or President Obama, very important people. But at the same time, I knew what was behind that. And they taught us, in our example, we had the opportunity to work with favelas in Brazil. Favelas are the communities, but most of the ladies in those communities end up in prostitution by the age of 16. And we help them together with Microsoft and other organizations to create schools so they could get out of prostitution and get jobs where they could get decent salaries and a career, because the prostitution career is very short. And that gave me a lot of pride of being able to help that. And that took me then to clean the shores and took my children to the shores of Mexico and just clean up the garbage and all the trash that the boats throw away. And then eventually, what it did is that any opportunity that we had, not only to share with my kids, but to make this world just a little better, gave us that sense and reason to live. And not only to go back to your job and create more stores or sell more stores or whatever you need to do. And it was because we did it a lot of things, either with I did it with Becky as my partner in crime and in or my children.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. So let's go back now to how many years ago was it that you had a health scare, but it literally turned your life around? Moshe is a healthy guy. From what I know of him, I'm not saying he never takes an elevator, but he likes to do the steps. He keeps healthy. And tell us a little bit about that and how that turned your life around, where you had this health scare and that's turned your health journey, let's call it that, around, and you actually trained to become a functional medicine health coach. So tell us a little bit about that and your journey.
17 years in the hospital boards, I learned that we were not literally curing people. Yet we were saving a lot of lives. But when you say cure, doesn't mean giving them treatments that they're going to be taking medicines for the rest of their lives. And I saw that we were failing badly as an organization because we saw that a lot people who would have stents or would have open heart surgeries will be back within 2 years to have the same surgery or the same treatment. And in the year 2010, I was diagnosed with diabetes, type 2 diabetes, insulin resistant, then diabetes. And in the year 2018, I had prostate cancer. And before the diabetes, I was diagnosed with very high cholesterol. So if you're a person that's been in business and you start connecting the dots, you said, my graph is not going back upwards, it's going downwards. Things are getting very bad for my body. And I started doing some research, and I found that Dr. Mark Hyman, who now leads the Cleveland Clinic modern medicine industry, let's call it the modern medicine, modern techniques or innovation medicine. And I wanted to get an appointment with him. I couldn't, but somehow they get my information. They invited me to this course called the functional medicine. I said, sounds like something I might do. And then COVID hits, and I have a lot of this free time because in Mexico, if you were over 60, you could not go to your office. So I was working from my house, but I had a lot of free time, and I decided to do functional medicine career.
I know, just that we can connect the dots. You still had all your furniture stores, or you were
Yeah, I was
involved
the
in other
CEO. I was the
aspects?
CEO of the company. I was still the CEO of the company, but I had a lot of free time. And so I did. It took me about 2 years to get the course. I passed it, and then I said, "Yeah, but it has no value if I just have a title. I want to be certified as a National Board of Health in the U.S. so I can practice in the U.S." My goal was that I would be able to help to make a change in people, that they can take control of their health, become healthier, and avoid taking as many medicines as possible. And that could be a whole interview. I could talk hours how pharma and some of the medical research that is being done now is not being done to cure, but to get you hooked to medicines for the rest of your life. And we've seen a lot of series now. All you have to do is just get into Netflix or any of the platforms, or you're going to find that. So what I did, I took the course, and then suddenly my cholesterol levels came to normal. My sugar, my diabetes disappeared. And yes, I had to be treated for cancer, but then all my vitals became just incredibly younger. My biological age was at the time already 9 or 10 years younger than my chronological age.
Oh, incredible. And I can hear that you're totally passionate about it as well. It's like you discovered this new passion in your life, which is totally different to business. Yes, you can merge them and do something on the business side with health, but there are
Yeah.
two totally different passions.
So actually, my objective now is number one, in Latin America, we already did. There are 4 or 5 of us that I was the first ones who started publishing. So that created awareness that you can take control of your health. And the men in the white robe, which I have the highest respect for, and you need them, and you need to take medicines, and a lot of times, and thanks to certain surgeries, you can survive. A lot of the times, doctors don't have the time because of the environment in which they live and in which they grow to really look into your history and see what are the triggers or the mediators that you need to keep you healthy, or what are the triggers and mediators that are now keeping you very sick.
As you say, there's a lot written about it. There's research about it in terms of the whole health slash medicine, let's call it. There's a correlation, but there's also two separate fields. And we know many doctors that are also involved in the natural health side. But we know many, as you say, who continue to just prescribe and are not looking at the overall big picture. They're looking at the small picture, or
And
just treating the symptoms and not the overall lifestyle.
that is exactly, and I do want to state one thing. I would not blame the doctors. Yes, the doctors only have 10 to 15 minutes to spend with you if you're lucky. There are countries they only spend with you 5 minutes. Also, we are used to, and I remember in the year 2000, I met a professional education from South Africa in Cape Town, Jacobson, Professor Jacobson, and he told me one of the things that I have shown to be truth. He was a philosopher in that time, 26 years ago. He said that in disposable diapers and those radios that you can listen to your babies at night have created a generation that they are quick to dispose and they want immediate attention. So when I grew up, when I was born, probably I had to cry my lungs out until my mother would hear me. And of course, there were no disposable diapers. I had to wash the diapers that would get dirty. So sometimes I
Yes,
had
in
to
my
pick.
days too, by the way, when my first daughter was born in South Africa, I was washing diapers. In fact, I will share with you, Now it sounds horrifying, but when I made Aliyah, I was at the absorption center, the Merkaz Klita, and I came with my cloth diapers, and they were just starting to use the disposable diapers here. And I remember when I sent my kids to the Ma'on, they said, no, you can't use these diapers here. We only use disposables. And that was a change for me.
It is. So today it is important that we have to recognize that the new generations, they are quick to dispose and they want immediate attention. And it's our responsibility to teach them to be patient and that not everything is disposable, because that carries on to your husband, to your partners and significant others, and etc.
Not everything is disposable, and also the whole thing about waiting for pleasure, delayed gratification, as we call it, for future benefits. So on a day-to-day basis, how does your new health routine impact on your life in terms of exercise, food? What would you say the major changes are that you did and that you're doing today?
I can talk about myself, and people who could listen to my podcast will find out that I said every individual is different. So what applies to me doesn't necessarily apply to everybody. There are several things that I've learned that are very good for me. Number one is I wake up early in the morning, very early, take some water and some non-caffeinated tea. And that has to do with your sleep. Then I will go to shul, and immediately after that, I will go and exercise for an hour to an hour and a half. And it's a very varied exercise type every day. It doesn't have to be the same, or it doesn't have to be weights every day. I'll do weights one day, I'll do cardio the other day, I'll do biking or swimming. It depends on what I feel, my body and I feel like doing. Then I would study something. I would challenge my brain, whether it's a new language or whether it's for 2 years I was studying guitar in Mexico, but here in Israel I've been studying Gemara very deeply for the last several years. And then attend my meetings, do whatever I have on my to-do list. And sometimes what part of my to-do list is just to walk on the beach and meditate and think about what are the relevant things that will nourish my spirit and make me feel better.
Wow, I love that. That is so important. And I think that's truly something that a lot of us do not do is we say, block out your calendar to do you time for yourself, to have a meeting with yourself, whether it's going to the beach, going to the swimming pool, going for a walk, whatever it is. So I think that is incredible. In other words, you're walking the talk. You're not just talking.
I'm trying to. And then my first meal of the day is usually around one-ish, one. That's my breakfast. And I'll do a shake or a smoothie that is full of vitamins, minerals. And I'm not talking powder mineral. I'm talking natural from here. The vegetables and the fruits are incredible. The nuts, just put them together. I have some incredible recipes I'll share with you. You can publish them in your site for free. And what it does, it gives me enough energy to keep going until about 5:36. I tried to stop working at 5. I failed badly at that because a lot of things happen, whether a few minutes ago, a patient called me, her mom is very bad. We need to talk about it. So, but I will try to stop around 5-ish. Usually Mincha is my limit. So I can go to Mincha, meet some of my friends, and then I'll come back, have early dinner around 6, so I can be finished no later than 7. And by 9:30, I'll be going to bed.
Wow, that is incredible. So you're living, besides the fact that you're partially retired and you're living by the coast and living your dream of living in Israel, which wasn't always your dream, but you're living in some ways a totally opposite life to what you had as the businessman, always busy, always under stress in Mexico, and not having as much family time. Some of the time during the day, you said you hop for lunch, but you're really living a totally different life to what you led over the last, let's say, 20, 30 years. Am I correct?
Absolutely correct. Yes, I am trying to pay back to my wife all the time that I stole from her between my 30s and my 50s, or late 20s until my 50s. But it's not that I want to payback. That was just a saying. The truth is, we
Right.
enjoy being with each other and doing activities with each other. Today, we went out for a walk, 1.5 hours together.
That's fantastic. And just one quick thing, your wife, who we mentioned before, she's a chef. She's an amazing cook, chef. And how did that change her whole way of cooking too? The fact that you started leading this healthier lifestyle. Did it change everything across the board in the family?
No, it changed everything because what happened in order to graduate myself, I needed to do what is called a detox diet. And all the different protocols that we have to allow people to help them cure themselves, I had to do it on my own. And so I told her that for the next 3 or 4 weeks, this was what I was going to be eating. And she said, "That's crazy. I'm not going to do two different recipes every day. I'll do what you have to do. I'll eat like you, but you promise me when you finish, we'll come back to what we eat every day." And being with such a wonderful chef as she is, I said, let's just hope that whatever she cooks today, it's healthy. It turned out to be she was suffering for two chronic diseases before that. And now it's probably colitis and arthritic rheumatoid, which is very painful in the knee. And she started eating what I was eating, lots of vegetables, lots of fruits, a lot of nature things, very enough protein to build muscle. But the first thing we noticed in the first 2 weeks is we lost a lot of weight. She and I. That extra weight that you said, come on, it's only just 2 kilos or 3 kilos, all of it went away and within 3 weeks. But we felt full of energy and we felt so much better. And her colitis disappeared and her rheumatoid arthritis disappeared. Medicine free since then. And I'm talking 6 years ago. So we couldn't go back to our old ways of eating. We had to create this new standard of living that allowed us to be energetic. I recovered my mind. I started to forget. You remember when suddenly you say, "Where did I leave the keys? Where did I do? Or what's her?" I have it on the tip of my tongue. What is that word? I started to have a lot of those moments. And my father passed away from dementia in 2017. So I had just seen it happening to him. I said, no way it's going to happen to me. And
Incredible.
yeah, today we have an incredible quality of life. And yes, because I don't want everybody to think that everything is perfect. My cancer returned in 2022, and that ain't returned because I was not really taking care of a couple of other things like stress management. I was still very stressed. In 2019, I traveled 100 times plus.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually came, and then I created this protocol with a functional medicine oncologist that, Baruch Hashem, cured me, but allowed me to continue and allowed me to change my lifestyle to a way that will at least provide me with enough health span of years.
Wow, incredible. Before we finish off and I ask you your vision for the future, and I'm sure there's so much more that we could talk about, I have to share with our viewers the amazing coincidental information that we discovered. So, firstly, share with our viewers you have a son who is a shaliach. He
Yes.
was a shaliach in South Africa, and now he's doing shlichut in America.
Yeah,
And then I'll tell the story that we discovered over a Shabbat lunch.
perfect. Yes. My son, who did Aliyah and lived here for 10 years, he became a rabbi. And on his first shlichut as a rabbi, he became the youth rabbi of Esha Torah in Johannesburg, in a community in Sandringham. And the first
Hang on,
question
so let me continue that because it
is,
still excites me when I say it, and then you'll say the rest. Over a Shabbat lunch, I discovered this that Moshe and Becky's son, had been to South Africa. Immediately, my ears popped up, and then I said, "Oh, we're in South Africa." And Moshe says, "Johannesburg." I said, "Oh, we're in Johannesburg." So, for the South Africans around that are listening to this, once he said Sandringham, I nearly fell off my seat because Sandringham is not a large area. It's also an area that a lot of people don't know unless you've grown up in that area. So I said, okay, Sandringham. By the way, which streets did they live on? And he told me the streets. Anyway, fast forward, the unbelievable coincidence. It turns out that Moshe and Becky's son, who did shlichut in South Africa, lived in the exact home that was my childhood home for many years. So we're going 50 years forward, right? I lived there as a young child, but I still remember that home very clearly. And it was just such an amazing coincidence. And it was really exciting. And we were actually going through the motions of, yeah, which room and this. And we were describing the house to each other. What a
Absolutely.
coincidence. Oh, it could only happen in Israel.
Yes. And just to wrap it up, because I thought was very funny that the main road that cuts across the Jewish community is called the Sandler Road, which is my surname. And then at the end of the Sandler Road, there is a butchery, kosher butchery is called Moishe's. So Moishe's at Sandler happened to be my name, and that was funny. Or
All
as
right,
we
like
call
you were in
it,
the right place at the right time.
right?
Wow. So just to end off, Moshe, and we could definitely continue for longer, your vision for the future, your aha moment, whatever, you came back to Israel, you decided to make Aliyah. Share
Okay.
with us, Moshe, going forward, what you dream for yourself in Israel, for your family.
Right now, I have decided I'm devoted myself some part of my time to help people recover their health. And that's very important because showing and teaching people how to control your health is important. But the most important thing that I consider myself doing now, and this is my dream, I'm working with an incredible group of people where we're creating achdut, unity amongst the
Unity.
Jewish people. My vision is that in a very short period of time, we will not refer against each other with any type of labels, whether you're Hilani, Young Israel, Haredi. No, we're going to be Jewish, Israelis living in Israel, and those who stay around the world, making sure that we all help each other become better and to develop our potential and not start pointing at each other's or fingers. Just remember for this is my last word. If I'm pointing you my hand like that, yes, I have a finger looking at you, but I have three fingers that are looking at me. And these three fingers tell me my responsibility. What do I have to do to become this better?
Amen, amen. I'm so happy that I decided to ask you to be a guest on my Monday Motivation Spotlight podcast. You are so inspiring from everything that you do for Israel, from the business side to the nonprofit side to the health side. So, wishing you, firstly, good health at Me'avesrim and even beyond
Thank you.
Me'avesrim, B'ezrat Hashem, if you're going to be continuing on the health trend that you are right now. So, wishing you only good health, wishing you a successful klita and absorption in Israel, which so far it definitely seems, with over only 4 months in Israel, definitely seems that you've been here for longer. So wishing you much success. And thank you
Amen.
again from Am Yisrael for everything you do for our special country.
Thank you. Thank you, Lesley, for your invitation. Count me in for whatever I can help you with.
Thank you. And I thank you, our viewers, for listening to another episode of the Monday Motivation Spotlight podcast. I'm Lesley Kaplan. Thank you, as always, to our sponsors, to Eggert & Cohen Insurance and to Lali's Flower Boutique in Jerusalem. You've been listening to another inspiring individual, and we look forward to seeing you next week on the Monday Motivation Spotlight. Stay safe. Bye-bye.